the products are still what they were then, but the company and the brand is completely, ruined. Hello and welcome back to the Plugged In Podcast, a weekly news show about the future of transportation. I'm Patrick George, Editor-in-Chief of InsideEVs. And I'm Tim Levin, Senior Reporter at InsideEVs. On this week's show, we're talking about why the new hybrid-only Toyota RAV4 is such a big deal, Elon Musk's media tour to save Tesla, and the slowdown coming for America's EV industry. But first, how are you, man? You were just on vacation. How's Mexico?
I'm good. I really appreciate you and Suvrat holding down the pod fort while I was out. You did a marvelous job, and it's actually really fun to listen to this podcast just as a listener. But no, it was good. We had a low key trip to a beachside city, and usually we like to be really active on our vacations and explore different cities and go to museums and stuff. And we did none of that this year. We just effed off to the beach, and it was kind of great. And it's always fun to go to Mexico too, because it's kind of dovetails into some of what we're going to talk about later. But there's so many car factories in Mexico that make the cars that we drive in America, and they have the same cars down there, but they're we get the one size up version, like the big crossover, and they get the smaller compact version. And also, fun fact, this is really not scientific at all, but I swear, 1 in 10 cars I saw in Mexico were from Chinese car companies. And I'm from Texas. I grew up going to Mexico all the time. Been there many times in my life. And this is the most Chinese vehicles I've ever seen in that country ever. So, take that information as you will as we talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Were you ever enough margaritas deep that you stopped thinking about cars and Chinese EVs and how we're screwed?
I was... it's every time I was just kind of hanging out on the beach, just check my phone, the news is always bad these days. So it finds me whether I want to or not. Oh, one other thing I was going to add that you and I think our audience will appreciate, the first thing I see when I get off the plane and go into the terminal, it's this giant Patron tequila ad, and it's register to win a BYD Seagull. And it's wow, that's the first thing I see in Mexico after our big China trip. That was that spoke volumes to me, man.
It's kind of a funny car to be to win a contest. Shouldn't it be something I don't know, bigger and more expensive? Something that's not the cheapest car you can buy.
I didn't enter, but I should have in retrospect. I like tequila. I like the BYD Seagull. Could have seen where this went. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of my big failures as an American is that I haven't ever had a vacation like that where I just went to the beach and just drank liquor and got a sunburn and just did nothing but that. But I'm planning to sometime.
Do it someday. It's one of the most American activities there is, I think.
All right. Should we get into the news?
Let's shift. Let's do it, baby. Yeah.
All right. We're going to kick this off with even more big Toyota news after last week's EV reveals.
Wait a second, Tim. Is Toyotathon on again?
Toyotathon is on.
You're obsessed. Anyway, last week, Toyota announced its big push into EVs that we've been waiting for. We talked about the updated BZ, which used to be called the BZ4X, with a lot more range, better charging. We talked about the new CHR and the BZ Woodland, which is kind of a bigger wagon version of the BZ.
And yeah, you guys are right. It's a goofy name, the Woodland. The Woodland. It's nowhere near as badass as the Subaru Trail Seeker, which really sounds like it's from a special forces detachment or something. But no, it's really great to finally see Toyota deliver what people have been asking for a long time, and that's great electric vehicles. But clearly they weren't done there, right?
Yeah, probably the bigger news, and that's what came out this week. Is the new 2026 Toyota RAV4, which also has a Woodland version. They're doubling down on the Woodland name. But the bigger news is that it's all hybrid now. So every RAV4 that you can buy in this new generation has some form of electrified power, which is a really big deal.
It is, yeah. So no more all-gas version of the RAV4 period. And just that's what they did on the new Toyota Camry too. But this is even bigger because we are an SUV country now, and way more people buy RAV4s than buy Camry these days. So the new RAV4 comes in your choice of regular hybrid. They're not saying what the fuel economy is for that yet. And plug-in hybrid, which they are saying gets up to 50 miles, 50, of all-electric range, which is pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
And so is the fact that like Toyota did some really cool stuff with the plug-in hybrid version. This is the car that used to be called the RAV4 Prime. So this one has 2 electric motors like it had before, as well as the 2.5 liter engine. But now it also has DC fast charging, like an EV. So like you could drive this to an Electrify America station and throw it on there, and it will charge the plug-in hybrid's battery in about 30 minutes. They say 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. And usually on a home plug or something, that takes a few hours. So really neat that they did that for a hybrid.
Yeah, I think that's gonna, I mean, the big question with plug-in hybrids is always like, how much are people plugging them in, right? Are people just buying it to get like a tax credit and then kind of lugging around this battery when they're driving it on gas? Or like, are they actually plugging it in and using that like 30, 40 miles of range to actually go places? And I think the fact that now the RAV4 PHEV has 50 miles of range, more than most plug-in hybrids, and it can fast charge, you know, while you're at the grocery store or whatever, you can actually charge it all the way and go home. I think this will make people use it a lot more like an EV, which will be a good thing. And yeah, only a few other plug-in hybrids have had DC fast charging capability in America, more so in China. One interesting thing, yeah, like everything else, it's more and better in China.
Yeah.
The PHEV is sticking with the CCS plug, the older, you know, kind of the plug standard that's kind of on its way out, not the Tesla designed NACS plug like all the new EVs get. Probably something about the development cycles getting in the way, but who knows? We might see the plug-in hybrids also get the NACS plug someday.
Yeah, I remember on a media briefing with Toyota, I think it was like last year, where they were announcing that they were going to go to the Tesla plug standard like everybody. And I asked, like, are your hybrids going to do that too? And they just kind of looked at each other like, oh crap, did we think of that? Like, it's Toyota. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did, of course. But like, I don't think it's something that they've like immediately planned for. But it follows that if that is going to be the standard in America for charging plugs, I guess it'll go that way someday, but for now they're not saying. But no, this is a big deal, man. This is really cool. And you wrote about what a big deal it is too. This is, let's face it, for now at least, maybe forever, more people buy RAV4s than are going to buy, Toyota BZs or the CHR, the BZ Woodland or whatever. This is the best selling car in America pretty much always that isn't the Ford F-150 or maybe the Tesla Model Y, depending. Like, everybody buys the damn RAV4. It's everywhere. And now they're all going to be hybrids. And I think that's really cool. And like, we have a lot of, readers and listeners at InsideEVs who are EV fans, and they're really skeptical of hybrids. They're like, just burning gas at all is bad. And I get that. And, like, scientifically and like, I agree with that, certainly. But realistically and philosophically, this car that sells in the volumes it does, going all hybrid, is going to mean a lot less gas burned, a lot less emissions made than ever before. It's going to get a lot more people into battery power than maybe any car like ever before it. That also helps Toyota drive down the battery costs, and we know they're trying to make those in America too. But no, I just think this is a really quietly groundbreaking move for this company. It's cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. To put the scale kind of into perspective, Toyota sold 475,000 RAV4s in America last year, nearly 500,000 RAV4s. About half of those were the hybrid and plug-in hybrid, and about, well over 200,000 of them were just like the regular gas version. So now imagine this year, or in the coming years, there's a lot of gas savings happening just from the RAV4, just because it's so popular. It was the third most popular car in America last year, only after the Ford F-Series and the Chevy Silverado. Then it's the RAV4. Like this is like a big deal of a car to be all, to use a word that like I kind of hate, but like all electrified, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and like very quickly, like when we say electrified, that is a very confusing and jargony term to most people, but it literally means just like adding electric power to how we get around. So electrified can mean full EVs or it can mean hybrids too. In this case, this is going to put more people into electrified cars than like anyone's ever done before.
I think just to put a finer point on it, like hybrids are not the long-term answer, right? Like in order to cut emissions and, curb this like climate crisis we're in, frankly, we need to go nearly all, no gas over the long term. But right now, when EVs, this transition to EVs is not going to happen overnight. There's a lot of people, for example, like me, who like can't charge at home, have various, trepidations about this. And so like, if you're going to buy a gas car, it might as well be a hybrid. Like there's no reason that everybody shouldn't just be buying hybrids that, save them money, save them on gas pretty much.
Yeah. The Porsche 911's a hybrid now. That's, I mean, if they could do it, then, then surely we all can too. Also to give you an idea of this car's importance, us and our sister site Motor One both covered the RAV4 debut, them a bit more than us. Cause they do more in the way of gas cars than we do. But at one point they had about 1,200 people watching their story about the live stream debut of the RAV4. 1,200 people. I just like to imagine like all these like RAV4 stands like sitting around just amped, like some new like Marvel trailers about to drop back when Marvel was like relevant, they're just like high-fiving each other like crazy and like hugging and like crying and stuff. So and kind of everybody who's like an automotive writer is like, yeah, new RAV4, it's important, but it's not sexy. And but people buy it and it matters. So
this is is like the thing that people get excited about. This is the thing that regular people care about. People who had the last RAV4 and now they're gonna buy the new RAV4, and like that's a hugely powerful thing to be going partially electric. What do you think of the way it looks? We haven't talked about that yet. I feel like I can't tell if it's because I see the current generation RAV4 is just like everywhere. I've gotten like really used to it. I think that's a nice looking car. I don't know so much about this one.
I honestly, I haven't thought at all about how it looks at all. And like, I think that speaks to just kind of how just these cars are everywhere. They're ubiquitous. It screams car. It's not like, remember like a couple years ago when like the current Prius dropped and like everybody on the internet was, oh shit, oh my God, the new Prius looks hot. Like that thing looks great. Yeah. That's not the reaction we're getting here. It's like, oh, hey, it's the RAV4,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. We love to see it. Anyway, I think the last thing I'd add is just that like this really represents Toyota's transformation into an electrified car company, which it has said for years it's wanting to do. And like with its most important model, with all of its trucks doing the same thing too, and also like a much better and broader lineup of full EVs in like a week's time. Like I credit where it's due, man. Like I think this is cool to see from this car company, and like they tend to set the tone for everybody else in a lot of ways. So we'll see who races to catch up here.
Yeah, you could definitely see the RAV4, and Toyota has so much power in the market that you could totally see other car companies, going like, oh shit, like we need to come out with better hybrids, right?
Yeah, or any hybrids at all.
Any hybrids. Yeah, there are companies that don't have any. Meanwhile, Toyota last year, almost half of its U.S. sales were hybrids, and they're hoping to do more than half. Sorry, not hybrids, electrified. Almost half of Toyota's sales last year were electrified in some way between EVs, hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and like 3 or 4 hydrogen-powered cars. And they want to get above 50% this year, and the RAV4 will probably help them do that.
Yeah, they'll probably pull it off.
All right, let's check in on the company that got the electric car race started, but is headed by a guy who's been going through some stuff lately. I guess you could put it that way.
Yeah, folks. Elon Musk, you may have heard of him. He has been doing something lately that he doesn't really do a ton of normally. He's talking to the media. He appeared on the...
Let's bring him in, folks. Here he is.
There he is, yeah. If he did, he'd probably like beat the crap out of both of us. He's very tall, apparently. So, like, I don't think I'd want to fight him. I thought about that in that debate, like the Zuckerberg versus Musk debate, like which guy would you rather fight? And it's kind of neither. Like one of them's a pretty big dude and the other one seems like he actually trains in martial arts. So I don't know. Find other billionaires to fight besides those guys, I guess, is my advice to you. Anyway, Elon Musk this week appeared at the Qatar Economic Forum. I never seem to get invited to that, which I'm sad about, but he spoke to Bloomberg journalist Michal Hussein, and she asked Elon if he planned to remain the CEO of Tesla over the next 5 years or so. And he gave it a simple yes, but also had the contingency of unless I die. Let's see if I'm dead.
Well, tell me then how committed you are to Tesla. Do you see yourself, and are you committed to still being the chief executive of Tesla in 5 years' time?
Yes.
No doubt about that at all.
Well, no, I might die.
Okay, short of that.
I can't be CEO.
Yeah, it was funny. Rob Stump on our team put it like as if it was an engineering problem that he hadn't yet solved. Like, let's see if I can conquer death. Then perhaps I'll be CEO.
I mean, if anyone's gonna do that, it's him. Like real talk.
Yeah.
Like he's going to end up uploading his consciousness onto some kind of AI chatbot that just will run that company into eternity. So, or he'll put it on Twitter directly. So yeah, I'm not ruling that out.
I feel like half of his consciousness is already kind of on Twitter.
Yeah.
So Tesla fans everywhere probably breathed kind of a sigh of relief when Musk said that he plans to wind down his political spending. He said he's going to do a lot less in the future, and he's done enough. What's your read on this whole situation, Patrick?
I mean, I guess so. It's odd. It's odd to see this in a lot of ways. I think that we're here on the heels of that Wall Street Journal report a few weeks ago that claimed that the Tesla board was going to open an executive search for a new CEO of the car company. And that was after months and months of investors like demanding that he spend more time at Tesla over his other ventures like SpaceX and Twitter and so on. And that was even before he got into, politics and Doge and working with President Trump. So like it's been a long time, at least 2 or 3 years coming where, people have been like get your focus back on Tesla. And I think this media tour that he's doing is kind of him trying to reassure people of that. But the question remains in my mind, like, can Tesla come back from the damage that Elon has done to that brand? And like we've covered this on the podcast before, it's a lot of left-leaning, center-left people who got into Tesla early for the climate mission because they like electric vehicles, really feel abandoned by his veering into right-wing and far-right politics and are kind of walking away from the brand. And they're buying Volkswagens and Cadillacs and Toyotas and all kinds of other stuff. And I don't know. We need to see if him saying he's going to be done with politics, or at least funding politics for a while, is going to take the heat off that company, off of him. So yeah, we've heard a lot of these promises before too. So I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
I don't know if, saying he's going to after spending $300 million getting the current president elected. I don't know if saying he's going to dial his spending back in the future, or saying that he's only going to spend 1 or 2 days at Tesla, or sorry, if he's only going to spend 1 or 2 days working in the government from now on, a week. I don't know if any of that is going to mean anything to the people who are just like, politically opposed to what he stands for. I don't know if that'll take the kind of stink off this brand. And there was we've talked about this before. We have some numbers to go with it now, just how low Tesla's brand reputation has fallen in the last, year. It was interesting to see, actually, Musk he addressed this directly, and this Bloomberg reporter asked him, and he was like, "Well, we've lost sales on the left, but we're making them up on the right, and we'll have to see if that really pans out in the sales numbers, which we'll talk about in a sec. But for now, like overall, it seems like the reputation of Tesla is far, far lower than it was before. So there was this Axios poll that came out this week of the top 100 most visible companies and their kind of brand reputation score among consumers. Tesla was in 95th place out of 100 after being in 8th place in 2021. And this is something that we know, like Tesla used to be this aspirational, Apple-like almost brand. It's like, It was like, it meant that you kind of made it. It meant that you cared about technology and you were like on the latest kind of thing and you cared about the environment. Like it was a real like virtue signal and like a cool company.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, the products are still what they were then, but the company and the brand is completely, ruined.
Yeah. There are companies that have come back from this level of disrepute, let's say, in the past, but usually when that happens, it's with a management change up top and somebody new coming in and redoing things and saying we're going to right the ship. So it kind of comes down to like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like Elon says he's sticking around, he's not going anywhere. But then how does the brand also recover with him insisting on being there?
Yeah. Do you want to hear what company Tesla is in at the bottom of this list? It's pretty wild. So number 100. Do you want to guess what's number 100? The least reputable brand in America?
I was going to say something like Raytheon. Like I'm sure there's smart people at Raytheon, but like nobody loves like people that make missiles. Right?
It's Spirit Airlines.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Spirit Airlines, number 100. Number 99, the Trump Organization. So there you go. Tesla's kind of along those lines. Number 98 is X.
So as a Twitter.
X is in Twitter, another Musk company.
We're batting 1,000 this time, aren't we, folks? Yeah.
Yeah. Number 96 is Wells Fargo, which is notorious for like all sorts of, mistreatment of consumers. Number 95, as I said, Tesla. Number 93 is Fox. 92, United Health. United Health beat Tesla. So yeah, it's not in great company down there. And then go ahead.
I wonder, that poll, like, to be somewhat fair, does sound like it skews partisan because, like, I think there are parts of the country that would not rank like Fox or even X as the top of their most hated or most mistrusted brand list. Like there are plenty of people,
or the Trump Organization.
Well, the Trump Organization, like there's plenty of people like where I'm from that would hold those places in those companies in higher regard. But I mean, still, I think that just it's not untrue that the brand perception of Tesla, especially among its core consumer base, has dropped because of the CEO, and like coming back from that's going to be really hard.
Yeah. Compare that to where the other automakers are. Toyota, number 4 out of 100. Honda, number 13. Those are by far the best. Then the GM, number 44. Hyundai, 51. Volkswagen, 53. So, yeah, I mean, Toyota absolutely knocked it out of the park, but all of them beat Tesla by a wide margin.
Yeah, I've read studies about that before, like across a bunch of different industries. Like Toyota is like one of the most trusted brand. It's like nonpartisan. Like everybody loves Toyota. Oh, you bought a Toyota. It's great. Good. It's Toyota. It's wonderful. Like they have this kind of, they have a really good status there, even when they've had the occasional crisis or two. It's also worth noting, like, this is in America too, and like the Europeans are pissed at Elon because he has backed far right political candidates there. Like the Germans are really unhappy that he was super down for the AfD party, and then in China too, sales are way down. And like this isn't scientific, but I spent like 12 days across 3 cities in China, and I saw I think under a dozen of the new Model Y there, and like you see the old Model Ys and Model 3s all over the place in that country, and just the new ones like, you know. But I've been wondering, because, you know, we haven't talked in a while, Tim. You're in the Bay Area. That's like ground zero for EVs in America. Like, have you seen a lot of the new Model Ys around you?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this exact question. I've been looking out for them. Musk said in the interviews this week that Tesla has seen a, quote, major rebound in demand. We'll have to see, you know, if that is actually the case. Judging by what I'm seeing in the Bay Area, I don't think so. I remember early 2024, when the new Model 3 came out, and within like weeks, I was seeing them everywhere in the Bay Area, just because this is like Mecca for Teslas. Like the Model 3 is like, you know, they call it the California Camry. It's just like everywhere. Model Ys are everywhere. Yeah. Everybody drives a Tesla out here. And I was like looking for the Model Y, and it took a lot longer for me to even see one. Now I'm starting to see them. I've seen a handful of them. I've probably seen, I don't know, 8 or 10 of them.
Yeah.
But it took a long time for me to see that first one. And to me, I was like, okay, this is not a great sign for these Tesla sales.
We'll see. I've been saying this all year. If, you know, Q2, Q3 sales numbers come in and like Model Y's not taking off, like that company's in real trouble. So like we don't know yet, because they don't report monthly sales numbers. They do them quarterly, but like I think it's going to be really telling. Like, he can only blame, you know, the fact that they shut down the factories to build the new Model Y for so long for this to work. I think one other problem that like anyone would agree on is the fact that like Cybertruck demand is not great. Like, it really does seem like everybody that wanted one of those has bought one already. The values have plummeted. We had a story this week about one person, after about a year, seeking a trade-in of their Cybertruck, and its value was down $40,000, which makes me want to have a heart attack just thinking about that. That's like what Maseratis do. Like, that is Maserati level depreciation, and that is like the last thing you want as a car company. So, okay, Cybertruck is out. You know, I think Model 3 is kind of inherently limited because sedans are never going to have the volume that SUVs have. So everything rides on Model Y, right? And the new Model Y. And if that's not taken off, that company's going to be in trouble. But
yeah, no, it's like people forget or underestimate how much of a Model Y company Tesla is. Yeah. I think I've said that before. Like, Tesla last year sold like 1.8 million cars, right? Globally. Over 1 million of those were Model Ys. So if the new Model Y doesn't hit, that is really bad news for the company. I think, you know, what we're looking forward to is like, yeah, can the Model Y pick up sales? And also, can these quote unquote new, more affordable models that they've been talking about that are supposed to come out in June, it's supposed to come out next month, what will those be? And can those drive growth? It's all pretty up in the air at this point. Like, I think we often say, like, don't count Tesla out. You know, this is like an innovative, good company. Yeah. They've come out with great products over and over again. Maybe Cybertruck excluded, at least from a, you know, consumer interest point of view. But yeah, like, we'll have to see how these new products work out.
And it's like, there are people out there that are really opposed to Elon's politics and are probably going to revel in the company's destruction. I don't necessarily look at it that way, because I think that this is the company, besides being an American company that was the technology leader in the space for the longest time, them faltering, like the rest of the industry falters with it, potentially. Like, you know, they were all racing to catch up to Tesla and get that Tesla-like valuation. And like, I still think the floodgates have opened and electric cars aren't going anywhere in America too, but like, losing the leader, or that brand faltering, like, I don't think it's a good thing for the space. And it's certainly not a good thing for people moving away from gasoline. But at the end of the day, there's only one person to blame for that. And he says he's sticking around for at least another 5 years or until he dies. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, these other technology leader startups like Lucid and Rivian, they're not at the point where they're really like putting pressure on the rest of the industry. Yeah, that has always been Tesla.
If it happens at all. Yeah.
Right.
We'll see, man. It's an interesting time, but we got more. we got maybe a really interesting weekend coming up on the policy side of things here in America, right?
Yeah. So between Trump's new tariffs and a complete reversal in pro EV policy, which, as we'll talk about, has accelerated literally as we record this today on Thursday, the big question on everybody's minds, on my mind, has been like, is the EV world heading for kind of a freeze in America? And the answer seems to be yes. I'll note a few recent stories that we covered. Dodge canceled the entry-level Charger Daytona as it continues to evaluate the tariff impacts because that vehicle is made in Canada. Honda delayed an $11 billion investment to build EV manufacturing out in Canada by 2 years, citing a weaker EV market. It also cut EV spending by about $20 billion overall. That's its kind of like larger EV spending plans, although it says it also still sees EVs as the future. GM's long-delayed plant, the Orion plant, won't launch as an EV-only plant, according to reports. And now Ford, this is a recent report from the Wall Street Journal, Ford is letting Nissan use some capacity at one of its joint venture battery plants in America. So what do you make of all this, Patrick?
Yeah, they're telling Nissan, hey, we're not living in this house. You can move in for a bit. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this trend already happening over the last year or so, and it's important to understand that like every car company like played themselves here because they all projected like, oh, we make gas engines at the start of this decade, and by 2030 or 2035, we'll just stop making gas engines and we'll make battery powered cars, and the market will move with us, and charging will move with us, and we'll just pivot and be done with it. And it didn't work that way. And even when you have like record EV sales like we saw last year, trending, to almost 10% of the market, so 1 in 10 new car sales, they're still way off the projections they had, which were like, oh, by this year, 2025, it's going to be like the double digits, it's going to be like 50%, be something insane like that. It didn't work out. So now on top of that, we add in tariffs, which is going to be expensive for every car company. And as you see, they plan this in terms of like being North America based. So all your investments you had in Canada, well, all of a sudden, like those are out. So it's, and then we get to the policy stuff we're going to talk about in a minute. So it's like this threefold slowdown of this whole industry that's going to have profound consequences for the future. And that's all before we get to the policy side stuff. And I think you've got a good summary of what we're looking at there.
Yeah, no, I think that was a good rundown. It's like we started seeing this happening kind of, I want to say like late 2023. There started being these reports of like EV growth slowing down, some of these companies pulling back their kind of long-term EV targets. They had really, it turns out, kind of overshot their expectations. Like Ford, the example I often bring up is like Ford, at one point, it kept ratcheting up its production targets for the F-150 Lightning. They were like, oh my God, we made the best-selling vehicle in America electric. Like everybody's going to buy this thing. And at first they were going to make like, I don't remember exactly, but it was like, at first they were going to make 20,000 of them a year. Then they bumped that up to 50,000. And then they were like, we're going to make over 100,000 of these things a year. And now they're not even close to that. It's more like in the 30 or 40,000 range. So they really overcooked, the whole industry overcooked these estimates.
I'll add one thing real quickly. General Motors, which is actually doing better at this stuff than most, and I think has a really good long-term strategy here. Their original target was 1 million EVs produced by the end of 2025. And last year they crossed the 100,000 mark. So no, GM is not going to 10x what they did in a year's time, like, unfortunately.
So it turns out it was way harder to estimate demand than they thought. And then on top of that, we have, a lot of the policies that were pushing EVs forward under the previous administration are now basically either already gone or mostly on the chopping block. So, the House passed this budget reconciliation package this week. We'll see where that's going to the Senate now. So we'll see there will be more negotiations on that, but it would end the EV tax credit. It would severely curtail credits for EV manufacturing. We also have billions of dollars in EV charger funding that's frozen and that the government seems to be trying to claw back. And then there's the regulations on the other side, right? These regulations that were pushing automakers to build more efficient vehicles, to build more EVs. And that was a big reason that they were doing it, right? There's the EPA tailpipe emissions, the DOT's corporate average fuel economy standards. Both of those are expected to be significantly loosened up. And then there's the California waiver is what they call it. Basically, California's EV mandate, the regulation that pushes vehicles in California and 11 other states to be all electric by a certain date. In California, that's 2035. And on Thursday, the Senate voted to get rid of that waiver that the EPA gave California and that allows it to do that. It's unclear whether they actually have the authority to do that, whether Congress has the authority to do that. It seems like no. It seems like there will be lawsuits to follow. But for now, the bottom line is like a lot of the carrots pushing automakers to build EVs, credits for buyers, that's probably going away. And then all the sticks, the things that would punish automakers if they didn't go that way, are also going away. So it's kind of like, I don't know how to think about it. We talk a lot about competitiveness, and that's a big part of this, right? Ideally, these companies would realize, look, the whole world is going electric, and we need to move fast on this. But they're also businesses that answer to shareholders, they answer to profits, and they're going to satisfy the requirements presented to them in the, least expensive and easiest way possible. So if the California waiver goes away, or if the EPA emissions rules go away, or are a lot easier to meet, that's what they're going to meet. They're not necessarily going to invest billions of dollars to overshoot them. And that's kind of the future that we're looking at least for the next, 4-ish years, is not a lot pushing this industry in that direction.
Yeah. I hate to keep harping on this, but this has been on my mind a lot since I got back from China, where just everything is electrified over there. And I mean, we're up to about 50% EV sales in that country, and a huge chunk of non-EVs are now just generally they're hybrids and plug-in hybrids, especially plug-in hybrids in that country. That has become an electrified country. I remember seeing when I was in Shanghai, an all-electric street sweeper, just like a city, municipal truck, and it was totally silent as it zoomed by, and it's that's the whole country now. It's crazy. And I bring this up because this week there was an excellent Politico story about what are we going to do here, right? What's the plan when we know that's where that country is at? And there is a belief there's kind of a schism in the Republican Party right now and in the Trump administration, and one side believes they kind of see it like I do, and it's well, okay, we believe in the tax cuts. We believe in not regulating the hell out of these companies, but we also see where China's going, and we don't want to get rolled here. And the other side believes that China's already won the battery race. It's already won the EV race, and it would be foolish for us to get into that and lose. So we're going to become an oil and gas country. We're going to become the oil and gas country, and we are just going to focus on the energy sources that we already dominate, oil, coal, natural gas, and that's the future here. They'll be the battery country and we'll be the gas country. And as our producer Mike Perkins put it at the outset, that feels like focusing your future on being an elevator operator, right? Unlike the jobs of being an elevator operator, or flip phones or typewriters or something. It's the car industry has always chased efficiency and performance, and we know that electric power represents the apex of both. And I don't believe we can wall off a better technology forever just because we've decided that. If this isn't a matter of national industrial policy, our companies are going to lose out to the better technology at hand. And I do realize this is what's the big beautiful bill is a massive tax cut bill, And like, in order to fund that, like, you're going to get rid of all this stuff that was in the IRA too. But like, a lot of these politicians are getting nervous, both because of competitiveness with China and like losing battery jobs and EV plant jobs in their home districts. So they're having to make a tough choice right now. But it does seem like the side of that party that's winning out is the one that's just like, yep, we're just going to be oil and gas is the future in America, and let China have its clean energy, and we're not gonna get in that fight at all. So
yeah, it seems so short-sighted. I mean, yeah, it's I'll say a couple of things. The bill includes a lot that's not EV stuff. Like, we're focusing on the EV stuff, but it is absolutely eviscerating all the credits for solar, for batteries, for wind, for nuclear. Like, it's all the future technologies that are clearly important that are just being, left to hang out to dry. And I saw this great study this week, or last week, from the International Energy Agency. It came out every year. It has this big global EV outlook where it maps out where EVs are doing well, how they're going to go in the future across the world. And it came out so embarrassing, frankly, for the United States of America. Like, in last year's outlook, the IEA projected that 55% of American car sales would be plug-in hybrids or EVs by 2030, over half of American car sales. Now, because of all the policy reversals that we talked about, it's going to be at 20% is what they're predicting. 20% EVs and plug-in hybrids by 2030. So like, market share cut more than in half. And if you look at this, like, where are America's rivals, right? China, by that date, is going to be at over 80% EV and plug-in hybrid. About 50% pure EV, the rest plug-in hybrid. Europe also going to be at almost 50% pure EV, and then a little bit plug-in hybrid. They're going to be total almost 60% plug-in share of sales. The US at 20, and then it's like, I mean, I don't know if this is like insulting to say this, but like, we have this chart with a bunch of the other markets and their predictions for it, and we're right down there with rest of world. Rest of world is at 17.2% plug-in share of sales by 2030. And it's like, when has the US ever been satisfied being lumped in with rest of world? Like, come on, we should be up there with Europe and China, right?
Yeah, when are American consumers satisfied with not owning a better product? Like, a product that is better, it just doesn't have enough places to plug them in yet, which is a solvable problem. And like, I know there's plenty of people that will scoff at, oh, it's just woke EVs, woke batteries. Okay, well, let's hear from a guy that's like decidedly not woke. And like, at the last Tesla earnings call, like, Elon Musk again is like, yeah, the problem of sustainable transportation has been solved. It has been solved. And like, this is a guy who's like confident that one day all cars will be electric. I believe that too. I am just wondering who's going to make them, And like, when I was back in Texas this past week, I was hanging out with family, and I was with my nephew who just turned 1, and he comes from a family of car guys, and I'm betting he'll be a car guy someday too. And I was just kind of thinking at one point, so when he's like 16 or 17, he gets his first car, or he's like in his 20s and he buys like his first new car for himself. Like, is that car gonna run on gasoline? Is it gonna run only on gasoline? I find that very hard to believe, just the way things are trending. But the question in my mind is like, is that going to be a Chevy he buys, or a Huawei, or a Xiaomi? Like pick which future you want, because like, I do think this is going to happen, and it's merely a question of like American relevance in that battle. We'll see.
And that's what I hear from, and you probably hear it too. That's what I hear from like experts, people who watch the space all the time. Is like, it is moving in that direction. The question is, how quickly and where will those cars be made? Will we in the U.S. have U.S.-made EVs, or will it be an industry, a market dominated by imports? Because like, if you want to sell in Europe or China, their regulations aren't going anywhere, right? These companies are going to need to, if you want to sell abroad, you're going to need to sell great EVs. If you want to sell here, you're also going to need to sell great EVs, because the technology is just better, and that's where it's going. So yeah, it's pretty disappointing to see kind of all the levers go to zero.
Yeah, especially in Europe where like all these car companies operate. Like they might kind of back off on like their EV mandates to give like so that like the German economy doesn't explode, but like you've been to Europe, like you can't even turn on like your air conditioning at the hotel half the time. Like they're very, very, very serious in the EU about like climate regulations. And like they may give some hall passes, but they're not letting school out, you know, like they're not going to back off on this stuff. So I don't know. We just gonna end up completely isolated and alone in the future and polluted. I very much hope that's not the case, but you know, it's not up to me, obviously. All right, now it's time for Plus Minus, our segment where we talk about who's up and who's down in the EV world. And we were kind of a downer on that last section, so we're gonna end this on a positive note, aren't we? Aren't we, Tim? We're such positive guys.
Yeah, that was exactly my thinking. Yeah, I've got a plus. My plus this week is BYD. BYD launched the mythical, the legendary $10,000 BYD that everybody hears about. Is called the BYD Seagull. That is going on sale in Europe as the Dolphin Surf, and it is going to cost the equivalent of around $26,000. Promotionally for a limited time, it's going to be under 20,000 euros or around $22,000. And this is just a really cool development. Like we've seen this go into other markets around the world. Now it's coming into one of the biggest in Europe. And like, if there ever was a shot across the bow at these European automakers, like this is it. This is a small, Euro style city car from China that doesn't cost a lot, seems to have pretty good specs, seems to not feel super cheap. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this thing performs in that market. Like this is like, the tip of the spear for BYD is this super cheap car. This is the one that everybody is really excited about, or alternately extremely afraid of and literally like having nightmares about if you like work at Volkswagen.
And I mean, you could get great deals on Patron tequila with them too. So it's expect to see that thing everywhere. Salud. My plus this week is going to BMW, which has been actually doing some really cool stuff on like the EV and hybrid front on its own. And they announced that they are going to be testing solid state batteries on the i7, which is really cool. That's another car company that's going to be getting into that. Mercedes said that they were also testing the same technology. And as a lot of our listeners know, if you nail solid state battery technology, you can get batteries that are going to be charge faster and last longer and are much safer and don't have the fire risks that current lithium ion batteries do. It's kind of called like a holy grail technology in a lot of ways. So it's good to see people racing towards that. A lot of other experts we talked to are not super optimistic. Like Toyota's been promising solid state batteries since I think the 90s, but and then it's true. And then a lot of other folks are saying, conventional batteries could get better and better, that we don't need solid state. But I think it's great to see a big company like BMW moving in that direction. So excited to see what the solid state i7 can do.
Yeah. And like between this and Mercedes, and I think there was another announcement recently, it seems like solid state batteries are really kind of going out of the lab, out of like small scale experiments on like in the lab into actual cars, which is a big deal.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the Plugged In podcast from InsideEVs. We'll be back next Friday. Today's show was produced by Michael Perkins and is brought to you by the Motorsport Network.
Make sure to hit the follow button wherever you get your podcasts and send us your questions about the EV world to podcast@InsideEVs.com. See you next time.